when Brandon sent me songs to listen to, as soon as I heard that song, I knew I wanted to speak to it. And as he was just singing it, it's funny because I feel very vulnerable, which I'm always pretty vulnerable when I speak, and I'm good at that. I mean, I'm fine with it. But today, as he was singing, there was a part of me that was like, could you pull that slide back up of his song, please? I was sitting here looking at that too, the picture, and just the whole, we all came from somewhere. Every single one of us have come from somewhere. Some of us are still living there, right, depending on our age. But we've all come from somewhere to where we are. So to have a song talk about the somewhere we've come from and being okay with where we are is a pretty powerful piece of songwriting for me. And I know for the world as they continue to hear this. So I made from my hometown. I mean, the title, that lyric alone is an entire talk. I made from my hometown. So I grew up in a row home in Philadelphia. Anybody else? No? Okay, I'm the only Philly person. So a row home in Philly. My father was a cop, and I had an older brother who was a jock, a football player, and then 2 younger brothers who were football players. And I grew up in a rough neighborhood. It was not an easy neighborhood to grow up in because, it was considered middle income, but it was, people were really struggling, and it was all these row homes. So like my next door neighbor's bedroom was like this far away from me because my room went right into my bedroom was jut up next to this one over here. So what growing up in that hometown made me was a fighter. I was a fighter. Not a boxer, could imagine. But I fought. I fought everybody and everything. My first reaction to anything you would say to me would be, no, that's not it. I probably didn't even bother to hear what you said. I just would fight against it. I have students like that. It's fun. I think it's that payback. I'm not saying any names. So I was a fighter. And I have a story in my show, Sissy Boy, where I reenact this whole scene of being the next to the smallest kid in freshman year of high school. I was like 4'6" as a freshman in high school. And I was literally the smallest, except for this kid, Chet, who I think was smaller than me, but he didn't really want to believe that. So he offered me out. That's what it was called back then. I offer you out. I, of course, thinking we're going to lunch. Him thinking we're meeting under the bridge to have a fight, which is what it ended up being. And, I had to go to that fight because you can't not show up because I had an older brother who was a junior in high school, and he said, I heard you were offered out. I said, yeah, but I don't think I can go there. He goes, you're going. You got to go. It's your reputation. I was like, it's my life. Forget my reputation. So I went under the bridge, and here's all these guys under the bridge getting ready for this fight. It was like the fast forward to West Side Story. Who knew? And so I go under the bridge, and this fight happens, and he starts, and the minute he laid his hand on me, the minute I saw a little trickle of blood, he was dead. Because I was a fighter. No one knew that. They really didn't know that going in. He thought I was this little sweet kid that was very soft-spoken, if you can imagine, and I wasn't. And I poor kid, he was leveled. He was like pummeled until he finally gave up. I was like, and then I walked away and cried that I actually hurt somebody. But my brother was the beginning of our friendship. And the thing is, I always thought that's who I was. And listening to your song helped me to go back and relook at this. Was I an angry fighter? Yeah, because I grew up in a home with a cop for a father, a fire chief for a grandfather, who was like a little Hitler, really, just this little, mighty little angry man. He was like 4'11". And then the cop for a father, and my brothers all football players, and my whole neighborhood being tough. what made me a fighter was because that's not who I was. I knew that's not who I was, so I had to fight my way out of it. To Broadway. No, I had to fight my way out of this feeling. But here's the interesting thing, and this is what I want to talk about today, and where it goes to you. That fighter followed me all through life. All through life. Was it who I really was? No. It was my reaction to what was. Not who I was. It's my reaction to what was. And I took it with me everywhere I go. I still have moments of it. There are still moments where that little thing comes up, that fighter. I have a pretty good check on it now. Kevin's not here, so I can say that. But I have a pretty good hold on that fighter inside because he sometimes still popped up. But here's the deal. I know that's not who I am. That's not who I really am. And if I'm going to remember who I am, it's not whatever I've become because of my reaction to the world around me. So, his lyric, but I can't change it, and that's okay because I've learned to let it go. It's out of my control. You know, Kelly brought something up about religious scientists and about being able to decide and choose. The past is out of your control. You cannot go back and control your past. It happened, oh well. As Dr. Walker used to say, get over it, Blanche. It happened. Your relationship to what happened is yours to decide. And you can take that relationship all the way through into your old age and just be a fighter who knows that life isn't fair and nobody likes me and all that stuff. Or you can get, as Kelly talked about, wake up in consciousness one day and realize that's who I was, this is who I am. And I loved that you said, I'm very proud of the man I stand here to be today. And I am too. And it wasn't an easy ride to get here. It was a struggle to get here to this point in my life, to get to be who I am today. So he goes on to say, it might sound crazy, but I should say thank you, because now I finally know who I really am. We have to say, oh, you took it down. We have to say thank you to all of this. We have to say thank you to that hometown, to the father, to the brothers, to Chet. His name was Chet. Little Chet, who landed on the ground when he tried to hit me. Actually, he didn't try. He hit me. But that's an interesting thing, too. It was that connection. There was something in me that when that little 4'2" hand, notice I just made him shorter. When that hand connected with my face and I felt the blood, something in me went crazy. And I now recognize that as that part of me that was so clear on who I am that no one can take that away from me. Now, I expressed it in a violent way. Not hard to do when you've got like 100 Catholic school kids in their uniforms all screaming at you to hit them. That's race consciousness. Race consciousness comes along and tells you this is what you are to do. I liked what you said in your song too about all the people, what they thought you were supposed to be, who you were supposed to be. All this voice, all these voices, this race consciousness, this energy pushing against us saying, this is what you do, this is who you are, this is how you act, this is how you have to be in this world. And that's not the truth. And in today's political climate, I'm sorry, it is not an option for me to react to every moment that is going on in our country or any country. It's not. My job, as the Dalai Lama says, is to be compassionate and loving towards it all and understand that there is something in everything that's going on that is still moving it to its highest and best place. Now, not easy to take for some people in this world and not easy to take on either side of the aisle, but frankly, who made those aisles? We did. We created the aisles and the one in the middle. There are no aisles. It's all man-made. There's just love. There's just God. It's always evolving for the highest and best. And if we get that into our consciousness, everything changes. So, who am I? Who am I? That's a pretty big question. Who am I? We here say, I am the expression of the divine. But what does that mean, really, when we say those kinds of things? Even when we say, I am God. What does that mean, really? How do you really live from that perspective? People do live from perspectives of knowing who they are back here. And you see it. You know exactly where they came from, exactly why they're acting the way they are, because they're showing you, here's who I am. But it's not who I really, truly am. And that's really the thing we have to get a hold of here. So the title of my talk today is Homemade. The pie is up there for a very, very good reason. I've eaten a lot of it this week. I went to Cambria with my husband this week, and for a 4-day vacation, as unplugged as we could possibly get, which was great because the house that we got had really bad reception. So I counted that as a blessing. I counted that as part of a demonstration because I wanted to be unplugged. When we got there, we plugged in and went, there's no reception. It was perfect. But Cambria was a little bit like that first picture. It was like a throwback. How many of you have been to Cambria? So you all know. So it's like we had not been there this way. And so it was this beautiful throwback to a time gone by, and there was this great place there called Lynn's Restaurant, where it's a family-owned pie restaurant, but their pie is their famous thing. And everybody was like, you got to go have pie. You got to go have pie there. And while I don't usually succumb to race consciousness, I did feel that I should try the pie. And Kevin loves pie. So we go in, and this is on Monday, and it's a pie that's a hybrid. So it's a blueberry and a raspberry that they've put together into this berry called I have no idea, alalia berry or alugal berry, some berry. But it's a hybrid. And they make pies out of this and all sorts of things, jellies and jams and all sorts of things. So we sat down to eat the pie, and I'm thinking to myself, why would anybody go to the trouble of hybriding a raspberry and a blueberry? I mean, why, just put them on the plate together. Why do we have to marry them to each other and come up with a new berry that I can't pronounce? Until I tasted it. And this pie was so amazing. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about a piece of pie. So this pie was so amazing. We had it on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we went to lunch somewhere. I said, I'm not really hungry. Why don't we just get a piece of pie? So on Tuesday for lunch, we had pie, a la mode. And then on Wednesday, it wasn't even a question. I was like, for lunch, he says, do you want my pie? So our diet this week has just been hysterical. It was pie every day, a la mode. And then when we left on Thursday, did we leave Thursday or Friday? Thursday. Friday. Thursday was pie too. We had pie for lunch every day. On Friday when we left, we were driving by Lynn's, and my car just went into the parking lot, and Kevin's like, what are you doing? I said, we got to bring a pie home. How am I going to have lunch? And so we bought 2 pies. One that we took to the Hollywood Bowl with Scott on Friday night, and another one that we're eating as we go. So why am I talking to you about pie on the 4th of July? Well, because of this thing that we teach called oneness. You talk about this hybrid, taking this and taking that and growing this, taking the Republicans and the Democrats and trying to grow a government, taking these things and putting them together. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at the center of it all is a oneness that you can't separate. You can't really separate the raspberry from the blueberry once you get it in here. So I felt that I was eating oneness pie. This is how my mind works. Everything is science of mind as I go through my day. So here's this pie, and while these two things have come together as one, I can't separate them. There's nothing in me that I can pick apart that will separate me from the truth of who I am. And this whole week when I was in Cambria, I was teaching Emerson's law of compensation. So every single day, I sat on the balcony of this house that we had, which was literally right, you are the ocean. It was just, there's the ocean. And I would sit there, and I would read Emerson, and I would prepare my class for the day. And the whole idea of compensation from Emerson about oneness was so clear to me with the elephant seals and these birds, these yellow birds just kept flying and landing right on the ledge in front of me. And just sit there. I felt like Julie Andrews, like I should start singing to them, And I think I did a little bit. So Emerson says this. Things refuse to be mismanaged long. Just think about that quote. Things refuse to be mismanaged long. When I listen to this song, what it indicates to me that in spite of what he came into, he became who he came here to be. No matter what you come into, no matter what you're going through right now, the world, the universe, God refuses things to be mismanaged long. Now, the operative word there is long. In time, in all of time and eternity, what is long? So if things refuse to be mismanaged long, then the question I have for you today is, what's going on in your life that feels like it's not correct, feels like it might even be somehow mismanaged? What's going on that you're holding on to instead of letting the universe pull it back into harmony? In this month of freedom, we have to get it, that we are free to the degree, and I'm glad Kelly brought it up. We are free to the degree that we allow ourselves to be free, that we know ourselves as freedom. He says this, everything in nature contains all the powers of nature. And he says, the true doctrine of omnipresence is that God reappears with all of his parts in every moss and every cobweb. Again, we're hearing that the fullness of God is right here in Reverend Nancy Bergren. Not just that little piece of Reverend Nancy Bergren is this one person sitting in a room of 200 people. No. The fullness that God is right here. Right here. Right in that little sliver of a seat. It's right there. Now we seem to think, no, Nancy's just one of the people that are here today. No. The fullness of God is right there. And it's right there, and it's right there, and it's right there. It's everywhere. The fullness of God. I feel like I want to do like handstands up here to get everybody's real attention. I'm not doing that. To get everybody's real attention on this. There's got to come a moment in our lives when we get so excited, so passionately convinced that the fullness of God is right here for me to just let it out in whatever way it wants to live me. That has to be exciting at some point. That has to be something that we don't just hear with words, but live with action. That we actually take that and live it and experience it and stop being that little person in a chair, but being the entire universe itself. And now, one of the greatest quotes from Emerson that just blew me away this week, and those of you taking the course, you know this, the dice of God are always loaded. So Emerson says, the dice of God are always loaded. Now, what I love about that is it means that we're constantly throwing them. I even beveled my foot. The dice of God are always loaded, meaning no matter what you do, it will always reestablish itself to the good. So if that's true, and that is true, that is what we teach, that no matter what I do, no matter what's going on in my life, it will always, always take me to my highest and greatest. The question is, how long is it going to take based on what I do, and how much of it am I going to enjoy? Because if as Emerson also says, Troward says, our only purpose in life is to enjoy life, then don't throw the dice unless you know what you want to throw. Know in your mind, decide. You are not, and this is where freedom comes into play, you are not captive to a career that does not serve you. You are not captive to a job that you don't enjoy. You are not captive to a relationship that has long since had its heyday. You're just not. You're only captive to all of that if you decide you are. Because the dice of God are always loaded. So stop throwing the dice at things you don't want to win. Think about it. That's what we get to do in this month of freedom. We get to really say to ourselves, I am free to live the life I desire. That's the affirmation. It's not just a bunch of words. It's the absolute truth. I am free to live the life I desire. And if I'm not living it, it's no one's fault but mine. Because I'm not living it. And I know, we hear a lot of people that say, I know, but I am stuck here. Well, no, you're not stuck here. Your mind is stuck. It's just your mind that is stuck. This person hasn't stuck me here. All this stuff from my hometown hasn't stuck me here. None of it. It is my mind. That's what Ernest Holmes came here to teach. That's all he came here to teach. Because frankly, working on Emerson reminds me that Ernest Holmes taught nothing but Emerson and Troward, which taught Emerson, who taught Quimby, who taught, they're all saying the same stuff. They're just saying it in their own way. So if all of this is true, when are we going to get it? That our mind is the only powerful tool we need to change anything we want to change. If you are not free, it's because your mind's not free somehow. You're cluttering it up with other stuff. So he says, I should say thank you, because now I finally know who I really am. So at the end of this song, when he says, I should say thank you, think about the many things you have said, about the many things that have happened. Was thank you on that list? Sometimes not. You know, I had my own tumultuous relationship with my father. I rarely said thank you to that man because I didn't believe I had anything to thank him for. I really didn't. You know, I can now say thank you because he taught me so much I didn't know I was being taught. I was too busy fighting against it. So gratitude. You want to be free? You want the freedom to create the life the way you want to create it? Start being grateful. Gratitude will free you up. Anger, resentment, holding on to the past, that will just keep you captive to a life that never gets lived. Gratitude opens you up. And I mean gratitude for the things that you perhaps don't want to be grateful for, which is what this song kind of is all about. So this week, I would like for you to notice, I want you to notice when your dice feel loaded and when they don't. I want you to notice what you do during your week this week. My purpose for being on this stage every single Sunday is to give us some form of tool, some form of awareness that we take into our daily lives. If it's just to sit here and learn about science of mind or Emerson, then I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in how does Emerson apply to me? And I really do look at it that way, and I live my life that way. So I think about this dice is loaded thing, and I'm like, where in my life am I throwing the dice? And am I throwing the dice from that absolute certainty that my dice are loaded? Can't go wrong. How many of you live your lives from that place? My life can't go wrong. Nothing I do could ever fail. There's an affirmation to walk around with. Nothing I do can fail. And I don't mean that la-la land thing of, and no matter how it turns out, it all worked out perfectly. Those are the right words, the bad attitude. But I mean, can you walk around understanding that you are grateful to be here because you know who you are, because you are not this singular person in a world that takes a lot of work. You are the world, and you are the work. You get to express yourself freely. And it's a journey. It was a journey for Brandon to come from all the way back there to this stage and say, I know who I am. Because frankly, that's the whole purpose. Love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. And if you can stand anywhere in your life and say, I know who I am, and I'm really good with it. Well, if I know who I am and it's God, I should be really good with that. How many of you are good with being God? Now, here's the thing. Everybody's God. It's all God. That's all there is. I learned that in catechism, in the Baltimore Catechism. Where is God? God is everywhere. Well, if God is everywhere, how on earth did somehow someone come along and take me out of that picture? If God is everywhere, I must be part of that. Except that Emerson and Troward and Rumi and some of the greatest minds of the universe will tell you, you're not just a part of that. At any point in the universe, all of God is present. At any point in the universe, all of God is present. You cannot extract the raspberry from the blueberry. and still have that same experience. Because God knows what it's doing. It knows what it's doing through you. It knows what it's doing as you, and it will not let you mismanage your life for very long. So why not just give up, have pie anytime you choose, and allow yourself to be one with the pie, because you are. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.